Hello, it's Davey Mooney coming to you from the University of North Texas, where I run the jazz guitar program. Benedetto artist, Sunnyside Records artist. Got my Sunnyside discography, including The Word, Way Back, the latest two, and four others. I've got three Mel Bay books, including the newest one, How to Achieve Great Jazz Phrasing. And what else? Let's see. It is mid-May 2026 here at University of North Texas. I'm here in my office, as I usually am. And let's see. We got done with the semester. We had little allergies coming through. It was a doozy, man. This one. It was a doozy among doozies of a semester. And but we made it. We always make it, you know. So far, anyway. And anyway, I don't want to talk about that today. I actually want to talk about something a little different, alternate blues changes. And this was suggested to me by somebody commenting on one of these videos or sending me a message. I forget, you know, things come at me from so many different places, different platforms and things like that. But, you know, there are many ways to alter blues changes. And I'm going to just focus on two of the most common, I think, or the most popular, perhaps, which would be like the Charlie Parker blues changes a la Blues for Alice, and Bud Powell blues changes a la Dance of the Infidels. And there are other examples of these, like for the Bird blues, there's Freight Train is a good one, Tommy Flanagan's. He does those changes in the key of A flat on the Kenny Burrell John Coltrane record. Bud Powell has other tunes that use those chords as well. Sippin' at Bells, does that use them, I think? That might be a Miles tune. But I'm going to focus on Dance of the Infidels. That's one of my favorite versions. And yeah, I mean, the blues obviously goes back a long way. I was trying to think of like how how in depth on this stuff, how musicological and historical I want to get in this video, and I'm going to obviously gloss over a lot of things. But you know, I'd say the standard jazz blues changes that I sort of came to when I first started getting into jazz, and you'd play tunes like, you know, now I'm going to forget the name of it, All Privav or Billy's Bounce. Say if you're in the key of F, you usually have like either an F7 or sometimes even like an F6, like a one chord, a four chord dominant, right? Back to the one chord, then usually like a 2-5 to the four chord, which is usually dominant. Back to the one, a 3-6 2 5 1, and then some kind of, you know, pedal on the dominant. I tell my students a lot that, you know, we learn, or at least I learned a lot, that at the end of tunes like that, you go 1-6 2-5, and that's the turnaround. I find that on actual jazz records, that happens occasionally, but more often you'll have like at the end of a tune, whether it's a blues or something else, depending on the tempo, especially if it's kind of like a medium to up tempo, you'll have like, you have the one chord and more of like just a 5 in the last measure, or sometimes even the last two beats of the last measure, just a kind of dominant pedal. You rarely get a 1-6 2-5, although occasionally you do. And it's hard to say, you know, definitively, this is what they do, they meaning, you know, the jazz masters and the jazz repertoire, the jazz language, the stuff that happens on jazz records, because the minute you say, like, this is what they do, I've noticed, like, sometimes a student will be like, hey, but what about this record? And I haven't heard something. I haven't heard where that other thing happens, whatever that other thing might be. Like, for instance, you know, you go 1-4, right? A lot of the time back to 1, 2-5 to 4. Do you do a sharp 4 diminish going back to the 1? I mean, it doesn't happen as much as you think it would on jazz records, but it does happen sometimes. And I think sometimes we think that because, well, you can go one of two ways. You can go, well, I learned this initially, maybe my generation, you know, in the real book or a Jamie Aebersold lead sheet, and it said that there was a B diminished in that bar. What would that be? Bar 6 of the blues. But they don't really do that on jazz records. Therefore, if you do it, you're, you know, doing it wrong. But then you could be like, well, what about this record where they do it? But I don't know, that's just one record, and they didn't know what they were doing. You know, you can get, I say one of two ways, but there's a lot of ways you can go, and it gets convoluted. Suffice it to say, there's nearly infinite variations on these things. But if we want to talk about the Blues for Alice changes, that's pretty straightforward. So you have like the recording of that, which is I think 1951. I think it's got John Lewis, Ray Brown, is it Curly Russell, one of those people? Maybe Kenny Clark, somebody like that. I think maybe it's Ray Brown on this one, but they have a little intro where they go like F major, A flat 7 or A flat 6, D flat, G flat before the melody comes in. And then you have the. So chordally he goes F major or major 7 or major 6, then a kind of minor 2/5 to D minor, D flat 7, C minor, F7, B flat, dominant. So instead of just 1, 4, 1, 2, 5 to 4, you fill all that in with these secondary dominants and a cycle. So you have 1, 2, 5 to 6, 5 of the 2 in the key of the 4. That was a really convoluted way to say that. F major, E minor 7 flat 5, A7, D minor, G7 or D flat 7, C minor 7, F7, B flat 7. And then sort of B flat minor, A minor, A flat minor, G minor, then you have the 2, 5 to the 1. And yeah, so it's a lot more to play over. Gives you a lot of more changes to run. That before I did this video, but I got pretty close, a little out of time. That's the melody. And yeah, what do you do with this tune? I mean, to a certain extent, you want to learn how to just kind of run the changes. I mean, I feel like now I'm kind of, you know, I say this in a lot of videos, I'm thinking more about phrasing and the structure of my solo. And to a certain extent, I'm thinking about like not playing all the changes, maybe leaving a few out in the interest of not having it be so like, oh God, I have to play every change. Then again, you have to go through, I think, a phase where you learn how to play every change. And for me, I had kind of had the same strategy with all these songs. It's just kind of slow it way down and try to improvise with all eighth notes in different areas of the neck. So let's see if I can actually do that. So if I slowed it way down, kind of like. So there I was playing a lot of the chords. Some of the ones that I tend to like leave out now that I have played this song a million times. It's funny, it reminds me a little bit of, Confirmation. There's a lot of similar things in Charlie Parker's song Confirmation. Also like Sweet Lorraine, the old jazz standard, has some of the same things. But so a lot of the time I'm thinking like F major, A7, D minor, F7, B flat 7, B flat minor, F, A flat minor, and then the 2-5-1. So simplifying it a little bit, not thinking that I have to go 2-5 to D minor. You can just play F major, then sneak in the A7, D minor, and not always have to do that whole cycle going to B flat, just kind of D minor. Wow. That was exciting. I don't know what that was, but something with my fridge over there. F7, B flat. And these videos are really live, y'all, lest you have any doubt. So yeah, F7, B flat 7, B flat minor, and then thinking of that B flat minor is like 4 minor 4 chord going back to 1, so that the A minor is actually kind of like an F major over A, or just F major, and then the A flat minor. In some ways, it's almost like flat 3 diminished, maybe. And I feel like on the song Freight Train, that he goes, well, to digress briefly about it. I feel like it's kind of like, we're in the key of A flat, so D flat major, D flat minor, C minor. I kind of feel like it's a B diminished almost because of especially the notes are like B flat. The melody notes are B flat, A flat, D flat. So I kind of think that feels like. Anyway, so sometimes I'll think of it that way as like a flat 3 diminished, although I don't really have that much time to play on it. But that's a simplification I'll do with the chords, and then just try to play melodically. Maybe play some Charlie Parker stuff, and he always always. Sorry, see, I'm doing that again. He often will play. I guess we'll call it blues language, although there's blues language and blues language. I feel like Charlie Parker, he never gets that far away from a sort of like maybe kind of roots, more folk blues, more rural even, that kind of maybe even sort of gospel churchy kind of blues, he's like. Like he'll mix that in with the sort of more sophisticated melodic scalar and arpeggio stuff. And so you don't ever want to totally get that far away from that, and I like to kind of mix them together. I don't play it as the same as Charlie Parker or as well as Charlie Parker, but even that, like if you're on a B flat 7, you kind of got some F blues scale kind of built into it, right? If you think about like the notes of a B flat 7 arpeggio, a lot of them are. I don't think you ever want to get too far away from that. If you totally take that out of your improvising on this kind of stuff, it's maybe missing an ingredient. And again, I know I sound like I'm always equivocating, but it's because you don't have to play blues licks if you don't want to, or that type of blues licks. But I feel like I want to make that a part of my improvising style, so that's why I do. Whereas the Bud Powell blues changes are different. And Bud Powell as a player, and again, I'm at the risk of overgeneralizing, I kind of feel like his playing is maybe more, and his composition and his whole vibe is maybe more urban in the sense of like circa 1940, 40s, well, more like 1950. But I always get the sense that maybe just because he's a pianist and he sounds like he probably had some type of classical training. I need to go back and do my research and see. But he does play blues songs and blues music, but I don't hear that same sort of like, Charlie Parker's from Kansas City, Bud Powell is from New York, right? So it's a different background. I should check that too. But so his changes. So if you take a tune like "Dance of the Infidels," which is such a cool song, He's got that cool. The changes are probably, at least what they solo over, kind of F major, F minor, B flat 7, A minor, G minor, F sharp minor, B7, B flat 7. And then they're kind of like the Bird ones, B flat minor, E flat 7, A minor, G7, A flat minor, D flat 7, G minor. And then he does D flat minor, G flat 7, F. So some significant differences there. We don't have that. We don't go to the 6 chord, right? We have 1, and then kind of sort of like the 4 again, but maybe with a 2/5 or with a 2 chord. So instead of just F to B flat 7, like you would have on your sort of Billy's Bounce, all Privav changes, F major, F6, F minor, B flat 7, and then this cycle here we have A minor, G minor, F sharp minor, B7, B flat 7. And I always talk about this thing of like a 2/5, a tritone away from the normal 2/5s. If we're going from B flat 7, a 2/5 to B flat 7 would be C minor, F7, B flat. So a tritone away from C minor is F sharp minor, and a tritone away from F7 is B7 going to B flat. And we talk a lot about tritone substitution as it relates to the 5 chord. The idea that you could go C minor, and then if the band plays an F7, you can play off of like a B flat major triad or a B flat 7 or some kind of like, think of that F7, think of the tritone, the chord of tritone away from that. But I think in Bud Powell and in other people as well, he kind of does I think of it as a tritone sub of the entire 2/5-1. Wes Montgomery does that a lot too. And what I hear in I talk about this a lot in my improv class and stuff, what I hear a lot of in sort of classic jazz, improvising, and stuff that gets played on jazz records is the superimposition of the tritone sub of the entire 2/5-1. Either it's written into the changes like it is on this song, or that's being played against the whole 2/5-1. So maybe the band is playing C minor, F7, B flat, and you'll hear somebody go, where I'm playing F sharp minor, but I'm playing like F sharp minor 7 too, as a way. So I'm playing like, I guess you could call it Dorian. But the interesting thing is that when you play an F sharp minor 7 against a C minor and against the C minor F7, you're getting an E natural. So you get the major 7 of the dominant, because the F7 would have an E flat, and you're getting an E natural in there. So it's kind of like, I call it transgressive jazz vocabulary, y'all. Like those things that actually get played that go against some of the rules of functional harmony. And of course, that happens all the time in jazz, but the blues is definitely a place where those rules get broken. I mean, just the idea that the 1 chord could be a dominant. And I know in these alternate changes, we're kind of treating the 1 as more of a 6 or a major chord, but definitely in some blues, having the 1 chord as a dominant just goes against the whole edifice of functional harmony, right, which is tonic-dominant relationships. But anyway, I digress. So yeah, that's an interesting thing of that cycle. So you got F major, F minor, B flat 7, A minor, G minor, F sharp minor, B7, B flat 7. And then, like I said, he follows the Bird changes, and then he starts to do a 2/5 back to F, but then sneaks in again that tritone sub of the normal 2/5. So instead of just G minor, C7, F, he goes G minor, D flat minor, G flat 7, F. And it's gnarly. And I just played, I did some choruses on Blues for Alice, And the tempos are a little different too. I tried to do Dance of the Infidels at about 200 beats per minute. And man, I'm still, I've been playing the Bud Powell changes for a while, but not as long as Blues for Alice. Like I sort of started, in high school playing Blues for Alice, and then much later on getting into the Bud Powell changes. But they're kind of gnarly. It's a different thing, and I don't think that. I mean, you could smuggle some sort of down home, countrified, rural, sanctified, churchy blues licks into that Bud Powell progression, maybe somewhere, but it doesn't seem to fit as naturally as it does into Charlie Parker's thing. And, for this one too, I would kind of try to play it in one area of the neck and play all eighth notes. I mean, that's my main process for getting comfortable with the chords, and then there's just strategizing of which ones to not play. So it's easier on this because I just miss some of them. Slow, but the idea. Oh, that was terrible. Let me try that again. I feel like I have to put some 16th note triplets even in there, or it doesn't feel right, which is kind of what Barry Harris talked about a lot, about, to get the right feel, you got to put some 16th note triplets into your lines. But yeah, if I were just play it a little more naturally, trying to get my phrasing together a little bit and play it and get some Bud Powell. I talk about Bud Powell's phrasing in this book here. It's just a really special, kind of magical way of organizing your ideas the way he does it. And there's some great recordings of this. There's the initial one, I think it's 1949-ish, with Sonny Rollins, like baby Sonny Rollins. I think maybe his first recording, or one of them, Fats Navarro. Who's the rhythm section? Who's on bass and drums? I don't know. Is it Max Roach? Maybe? Roy Haynes? Somebody like that? Anyway, and then I really like, there's this album, there's a trio version of this several years later on an album, I think it's a long playing album called The Lonely One, which is really cool. I was just looking it up. It's funny because it's hard to find, but it's really cool. It's him playing the tune. It's a little bit slower. Who is it? I think it's Kenny Clark and Percy Heath. And it's funny, his solo on it sounds so much like Thelonious Monk to me. It's really kind of trips me out. I encourage y'all to search that, because a lot of people know the one that starts out with the with the little I don't know how you describe that, the horn intro, but the trio version is really cool, and he just plays some different stuff. So I encourage you to seek that out. So anyway, I'm going to try to demonstrate playing these two different variations on blues changes. I'll do the Blues for Alice, some courses on that, and then I'll try to tackle some Dance at the Infidels. So I hope you enjoy it. And Charlie Parker, Bud Powell. There's some cool records of them together. I really like. There's a bootleg of them at Birdland in 1950 with Fats Navarro as well. That's really cool. All right, y'all. Have fun with their alternate blues changes.